Hello, Micah here on Beltane, which is May 1st in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's actually in the Southern Hemisphere, Samhain or Halloween. And in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a celebration of life, and in the Southern Hemisphere, it's death. And then in October, it'll reverse itself. So I want to talk a little bit more about life. And as a side note, the veil is thin right now, which means that you may be experiencing some occurrences of ghosts from the past. It could be dead loved ones that are showing up in your dreams, or you're getting little indications that you're getting visitors or strange occurrences that make you wonder about that. Well, you probably are not crazy. You probably are just getting some affirmations. And if you feel more in tune with things that are going on in the world, if you feel a little more sensitive lately, that's also a reason why. So that also helps you feel more alive, even if you don't always like it, right? So we're going to talk more about how we celebrate life, and I wanted to focus on the topic of fear because fear is prevalent, especially right now. We're actually being forced to look at our fears. And there are healthy fears and unhealthy fears, right? Usually a healthy fear, we can have courage. We're experiencing it as opposed to dread, which is if we're in a state of dread, that's unhealthy. But if we're feeling courageous, even when we should be fearful of something that is harmful to ourselves or others, we can still have the courage to face it, manage it, navigate it however we need to that keeps us healthy and alive, or others. We keep them healthy and living their best life. So I think it's important to recognize that fear can be our friend, but it also can be our worst enemy. It's demonized a lot by the spiritual community, which frustrates me a little bit because it is a natural part of who we are. There is an animal instinct in us all. And yes, it is ideal to transcend that, but sometimes I think people, maybe it's not ideal to transcend it. I should rephrase that. I think that it's better to transmute it because it's still part of who we are, right? It's part of our human experience. It's why we're here. Regardless what your belief system is, we still have this part of us. Animal instincts, and fear is one of them. It keeps us ready and engaged and vigilant so that we are not harmed. And that's a good thing. We don't want to be hurt. But sometimes we can be in that state so much for so long, an extended period of time. With our COVID situation right now, a pandemic would definitely do that for everyone. We also can know it from past trauma, abuse, PTSD, any kind of childhood experience that made us feel traumatized, neglected, abandoned. Those all can create a constant hypervigilant state to where we're so clouded that we're so hypervigilant that everything looks like a threat, which is the reason why you're seeing so many conspiracy theories right now too, is because, and I'm not saying that any of them are right or wrong, I'm just saying it's important to kind of keep an optimistic, grounded look at everything that comes up and curious, as opposed to fret or worrying too much or getting too consumed in any of it, because then we're disempowering ourselves. Remember that when we step into our power in a physical state, we are in the state of organization as opposed to confusion. And all of the theories that are going out online, the more we perpetuate that, the more we help confuse other people, it helps keep them in a state of an unhealthy fear, because then we're looking at everything as a threat. Of course, we want some control over the situation, and this is a way to get that feeling, to kind of make sense of what's happening in the world and to protect ourselves from a future threat or having to go through this again or longer than necessary. And that's all very valid. I'm not saying it isn't. But what's important is to take kind of a self-inventory. are you feeling tranquil when you investigate these things? Maybe agitated a bit, but or is it giving you anxiety? If you're getting anxiety, worried, frustration, irritation, it's time to step back and find a way to organize things, your thoughts, even your external world. Any way you can organize things, even if you write down all the things that are frustrating you, look at the common thread between all of them and what is at its core. Because the things we share on social media, the things we talk about, whenever we say we're passionate about something, we have to remember to do a self-check before we share things and say, am I passionate because I'm afraid of something? Or am I passionate because I love something so much? So I love my family. I was afraid of my parents getting this more than anything else. That was my greatest fear. And I was afraid to bring, like when I was an essential worker and I was going to work still in the beginning of this, I had anxiety because I was afraid I was going to bring something home with me to my loved ones who were quarantined and maybe they're more susceptible than I am. And that would give me anxiety, and rightly so. But I did perhaps get a little carried away with it by sharing things online that would perpetuate the escalated anxiousness that I was feeling. So I think today is a good day to look at our lives, look at the things that we want to celebrate and the things we want to perpetuate and what's empowering. And when you get passionate and you feel yourself triggered, you feel a reaction coming as opposed to a response, because a response will have an organized thought behind it and a goal. And the goal should be beyond changing someone else's mind so they believe what you believe, because beliefs are fallible and they're from our imaginations or someone else's imagination, and we just like what they believe and it resonates with us. But we do want to also look at facts and organize our lives around what we think is best for us. Maybe some of the things we see online are valid. So what are you going to do about it? As opposed to perpetuating anything fearful, how can you inform others from a place of having all the information? How are you going to protect your family and make sure that they are healthy? Ask yourself, where is this fear coming from, and how can it make me feel more alive as opposed to feeling closer to death? Is a part of you dying when you see something online or posting? Like your spirit, does it feel like it dies a little? Does your body feel weak, anxious, filled with tremors? Does your heart ache? Do you feel heartbroken? It's important to look at these things. There's a lot of people that are lonely, feeling more isolated because they are not quarantined with other people. They're used to getting their socialization and they're not really getting that. And it's going to bring up feelings of abandonment, and we need each other in order to thrive in life. And right now we're all in survival mode, essentially, some a lot more than others. And we aren't able to thrive when we aren't able to connect with people, especially in a physical sense. Even if we're not physically touching, just being near other people and feeling the resonance of their heart with ours, feeling their overall presence, the energy they give off. It can really help us reflect and see things from a different perspective, but also feel safe doing that. And right now, the more isolated we are, the less safe we feel, the more fear perpetuates itself. So all I'm doing is inviting you to look at how fear is working in your life right now and how you can make yourself feel more alive and more optimistic, moving that stagnant energy that may be difficult to deal with. Singing is an earth element, and that helps move stagnant energy. Any kind of body movement, whether it's taking a walk, doing a few stretches on the floor, some calisthenics, go on YouTube and look up videos of beginner yoga or qigong, anything that can help move your energy. Also, writing down, like I said before, you don't even have to necessarily journal, but write down the things that you're afraid of and look for a common theme. and what is it that you feel you can do about it in this moment. Even if it's just going and soaking in the tub, or giving yourself permission to take a nap and not beating yourself up for it, or not beating yourself up for anything under these circumstances. Because remember, we're in the fight or flight or freeze response when we're in survival mode. So as a globe right now, people are experiencing that feeling more than they are the rest and digest feeling, which is relaxation. And our nervous systems are hypervigilant and ready to go all the time because we're surviving. We're not in the space of being able to thrive. What would thriving look like to you? And write that down. What do you want to bring into as things start to evolve and progress, and hopefully we won't be as quarantined as much as we are now? What would thriving look like to you? What made you feel like your life was thriving before? And maybe make a list of that. And find something. I got a floral candle burning. Find something that celebrates life, new beginnings, birth, and what can be born out of a difficult situation. And I'm not saying look only at silver lining, because we're going to have the inner critic and we're going to have all kinds of triggers showing us what's wrong with the situation, and that won't work because, and yes, those are all valid. Yes, and you can label those thoughts. Yes, that's a judgment. Yes, that's planning. And then just go back into the space of something productive. What do I want to see happen? Just for me, just for my individual self, and then for my family, and how does that translate to them? And then it's just a ripple effect, right? So I hope this was helpful. I know it was a little lengthy, but I wanted to hopefully be somewhat encouraging so that we have the courage to look at our own fears, because that is already a huge step forward in celebrating the lives that we do have right now, and honoring those who have had to give up their lives recently, especially for something that is very scary. There's a lot of other ways we can lose our lives anyway, right? So right now, we'll focus on the present and how can we make it better for ourselves and our loved ones. All right, thank you, and I hope you enjoy your May.